You won't believe what happened when a woman tried to steal my Jeep right from my driveway. She called the police, threatened me, and thought she could intimidate me. But she didn't realize I had the state attorney on speed dial. By the time the truth came out, everyone watching was in shock. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. I was sipping my morning coffee, sunlight streaming through the kitchen window, the aroma of fresh beans filling my little suburban house. The birds were unusually loud that day, their chirps mingling with the faint hum of the lawnmower across the street. Everything felt normal, peaceful. Too peaceful, I would soon realize. I glanced out the window at my driveway, admiring my Jeep parked there, its matte black finish gleaming in the morning light. It was mine. Every scratch, every dent, every mile on that Jeep had a memory. But that morning, I was about to learn just how fast memories and possessions could become targets. The first hint something was wrong was a knock at the front door, sharp, impatient, the kind that rattles nerves. I opened it to see a woman in designer sunglasses, a crisp white blouse, and an air of entitlement that screamed, "Don't question me." She smiled too wide, teeth flashing unnaturally. "Hi, I'm here for the Jeep," she said, voice saccharine but with an edge underneath, the kind of edge that makes your skin crawl. My eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" I asked, confused. "Your Jeep?" "I'm picking it up for my daughter. She's been looking at it online, and Her explanation faltered as I stepped back, narrow in my eyes. Something about her was off. I walked toward her slowly, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Ma'am, this Jeep is mine. You do not have any appointment with me. No paperwork, nothing." She lifted a perfectly manicured finger, wagging it slightly. "Look, I already called the police. They said I could take it if you don't want any trouble." Her confidence was astonishing, almost cinematic. I laughed nervously, trying to gauge whether this was some kind of prank. But the tension in the air was immediate and heavy. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of her expensive perfume, clashing with the faint smell of gasoline from my Jeep. Neighbors had begun to peek from behind curtains and open garage doors. I could see them whispering, tension creeping through our street like smoke. The woman's tone sharpened. "Listen, I don't have time for games. Step aside, or things get ugly. I have authority here." I clenched my coffee mug, my fingers tightening around it so hard the ceramic rattled. My heart was thumping, a wild rhythm against the calm suburban backdrop. Something inside me refused to yield. Something told me this woman was bluffing, and I wasn't about to let her take what was mine. "Authority?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "You mean like your police? Or something else?" The corners of her mouth twitched, like she was about to strike verbally. She leaned closer, lowering her voice to a threatening whisper. "You don't know who you're dealing with. Just let the Jeep go." My pulse raced, the neighbors now fully alert. I could hear whispers turning into murmurs, some kids peeking through fence slats, adults holding phones, as if ready to call 911 at any moment. The tension was electric, heavy enough to taste. I straightened, trying to keep my composure. "Ma'am, you either leave peacefully or I call my own authorities." Her eyes flicked briefly to the Jeep, then back to me, calculating, predatory. Her hand hovered over the door handle like she was ready to make a move. The sun glinted off her sunglasses, hiding the emotion in her eyes. I took a slow step forward, trying to assert dominance without escalating. My Jeep was my territory, my memories locked in that metal frame. The street seemed to shrink around us, neighbors frozen, waiting. Then she did it. She stepped closer, too close, her perfume overwhelming, her voice rising. "I'm taking it. I don't care what you think." She reached for the driver's side door. That was it. The line had been crossed. I dropped my mug, the coffee sloshing onto the tile floor. I moved like instinct, blocking her path, my hands on the door. Her eyes widened with irritation, disbelief, and suddenly something snapped in the air. I could feel the tension in my chest tighten, my breathing shallow. She underestimated me, and I was not someone to underestimate. "Stop." I barked, voice shaking with more authority than I realized I possessed. My neighbor, Mrs. Green, appeared behind me, clutching her phone. "Call the police," she hissed, as if sensing the storm about to erupt. The woman froze, flicking her gaze from the Jeep to me to the gathering crowd. For the first time, I saw her confidence waver, the mask slipping. And in that moment, I realized I had more power than she could imagine. I straightened up, keeping my eyes locked on hers. The tension was unbearable, like standing on the edge of a cliff during a thunderstorm. She huffed, tossing her hair over one shoulder, the kind of gesture meant to assert dominance, but it faltered under the weight of my unwavering stare. "You really don't want to make this personal," she said, teeth clenched, the words sharp but wavering. My hands didn't move, my feet rooted like a tree in my driveway, my pulse a wild drum in my ears. The neighbors had circled, a loose ring of eyes witnessing a standoff that could spiral out of control at any moment. "I'm not the one who should be worried," I replied evenly, my voice firm, carrying over the murmurs. "This Jeep is mine. You can call every officer in the county. You won't change that." Her lip curled, and I caught the faint scent of anger now mixing with her perfume, creating a bizarre, almost toxic haze. She reached again for the handle, and I stepped closer, closing the tiny gap between us. My breath hitched slightly as I felt the energy between us shift. It wasn't just a Jeep anymore. It was a test of power, authority, and morality. She muttered something under her breath, the words lost in the tension. "I'll have this Jeep by the time the cops arrive," she said, but her voice faltered on the last word. I could see the calculation in her eyes. She thought she had leverage. She thought her threats, her calls, her fake bravado meant something. The crowd was hushed now, silent except for the occasional bird or distant car. Every neighbor's gaze felt like 100 tiny spotlights on her pretense. I could almost feel her confidence crumbling. Then came the escalation. She suddenly raised her voice, louder now, meant to intimidate. "Do you know who I am? You have no idea." I felt a chill, realizing she was trying every trick in the book. Intimidation, shouting, even hinting a connection she probably didn't have. My stomach twisted, but I refused to flinch. Instead, I leaned slightly forward, lowering my voice so it cut through the tension sharper than any shout could. "I know exactly who you are, and exactly who I have on my side." The words hung in the air, a silent hammer waiting to strike. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped back slightly, a flicker of hesitation crossing her face. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, tone now edged with panic. I smiled a cold, calculated smile. "The state attorney." "Yes, the one you didn't expect." Her breath hitched. Her hand trembled as it hovered over her purse. And suddenly, the grand performance of authority she had been projecting started to crack. The crowd shifted, whispers turning into audible murmurs, some gasps escaping. I could feel every heartbeat pounding in my ears, every drop of adrenaline sharpening my senses. The morning sun glinted off my Jeep, painting it almost like armor around me. My neighbors were now fully invested, eyes darting between us, phones raised like evidence. I could sense the panic spreading in her, the realization that she had walked into a trap she didn't see coming. The street, the once calm suburban street, felt like a courtroom. I was the judge, the jury, and apparently the executioner of her little scheme. Her lips parted, as if she was about to call my bluff, but something in her gaze shifted. Recognition, fear, maybe even regret. I didn't speak again immediately. I let the silence stretch, heavy and suffocating. The Jeep, my Jeep, sat gleaming between us like a trophy I wasn't about to hand over. And then she did the unthinkable. She tried to laugh it off, but it was hollow, brittle, and shattered the illusion she had built for herself. "Fine," she spat finally, voice tight with anger and disbelief. "This isn't over." But I could see the tremor in her hands, the uneven stance, the way she glanced around at witnesses. Her bluff had been called, and the consequences were looming. I straightened, my breathing steady now, adrenaline still coursing, as the crowd started whispering to one another. Every eye was on her, every phone capturing the moment. The moment the first neighbor took a step forward, my heart skipped. I realized that in this chaotic scene, her next move could escalate into something dangerous. She fumbled for her phone, probably planning another call to her so-called authorities. I didn't flinch. Instead, I calmly reached for my own, already on speaker. "Yes, it's me," I said, voice controlled, letting the air vibrate with authority. "The woman in the white blouse?" "Yes." "She's refusing to leave my property." The click of her voicemail or faint murmurs of recognition from the other end made her face blanch. The tension escalated as she tried to argue, but her words faltered under my calm, precise responses. I mentioned the state attorney again, this time casually, as if it was nothing. "You called the police? That's fine. You'll have plenty of time to explain why you were impersonating someone else, making threats, and trying to steal private property." Her sunglasses narrowed wide, panicked eyes. The spectators on the street whispered among themselves, the scene becoming more like a public spectacle than a simple driveway confrontation. She suddenly lunged toward the Jeep, a last-ditch effort to seize control, but I was faster. Hands firm on the door handle, voice sharp. "Stop right there." The power of my words, backed by unseen legal weight, caused her to freeze. Neighbors gasped. Even the kids stopped peeking through fence slats, holding their breath. Her facade was crumbling. The veneer of authority she tried to impose on me was nothing against the real authority I wielded quietly, deliberately. Her voice cracked as she finally admitted defeat. Okay, take it. Take the Jeep, whatever. You win." The street erupted in quiet murmurs, whispers turning into low chuckles. She turned abruptly, storming off, the heels of her expensive boots clicking against the pavement. Each step a retreat, a confession. I could feel my body release the tension I didn't realize I'd been holding. The sun now felt warm instead of oppressive, the smell of coffee and gasoline mixing harmlessly again. I stepped toward the Jeep, running a hand along its hood, grounding myself in the reality that what I owned, what I'd worked for, remained mine. The crowd had dispersed gradually, neighbors returning to their routines, some shaking their heads in disbelief. My heart was still racing, adrenaline lingering like a faint hum under my skin. The moral clarity of the morning had shifted dramatically, from a mundane day to a victory over deception, arrogance, and intimidation. I took a deep breath, looking at the Jeep, feeling a quiet sense of triumph. Authority, real authority, doesn't come from threats or calls or stolen bravado. It comes from truth, preparation, and knowing your rights. This encounter left me more vigilant, more aware, and strangely, more grateful for the calm moments I'd taken for granted before. The lesson was carved into the morning air, as clear and sharp as the click of my Jeep's locks. And that's how a simple driveway confrontation turned into a lesson about authority, respect, and knowing your rights. Some people think intimidation works, but real power comes from truth and preparation. My Jeep stayed where it belonged, and she faced the consequences she never saw coming. Remember, standing your ground matters, and justice as a way of catching up. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button, share it with friends, and comment below. Have you ever faced someone who thought they were above the law?